Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prog Connection with my father of keyboard player of 40 years, worked with Terry Brown of Rush fame. We have Phil, who has seen Yes 5 times in the last 7, 8 years around. We are doing the incredible discography that is Yes, and it's a gigantic discography filled with a lot of quality. There's numerous albums that you'll always hear about when you're trying to enter in prog, like Close to the Edge, Relayer, Fragile, among a plethora of others in their discography. You may even see something like Drama. That's pretty highly rated on some lists. But today we are discussing the lengthy discography that is Yes. And man, what a great discography it is. Dad, what do you have to say about Yes, just before we go?
Just an absolutely fantastic band and a cornerstone of prog, pretty much defining the genre.
Phil, yourself? Any quick words?
They were my second prog band get into after Styx. Got into Yes the following year and never looked back. I've listened to all of these albums multiple times.
Yeah.
I love everything about them. Well, not everything, but we'll get
As
to
we'll
that.
get into. We are going to start with Phil. Let's get down to it. Phil, what's your 24th?
All right.
Ouch.
24th
Mm-hmm.
is Open Your Eyes,
Oh.
1997.
Mm-hmm.
This album came out obviously 1997, like I said. Rick had quit the band after recording Keys to Ascension 2. Billy Sherwood and Chris Squire started writing a bunch of material that really wasn't for like any specific project. Some people say that it was going to be what became Conspiracy. And there was some material that they were recording that was earmarked for that. They sent what they had to John, Steve, and Alan, and they liked what they heard. They came in very late in the game in terms of writing and just recorded their parts, put it out as Open Your Eyes. And unfortunately, not everything here works. Some of it does. I think the first 3 songs are phenomenal. New State of Mind, the title track, and Universal Garden are all excellent and worthy of being on any Yes album. Problem is, after that, it kind of turns into a mixed bag. No Way We Can Lose is not a good song for Yes. It's a decent song on its own. Most of these songs are actually decent in their own right, but just they're not good Yes songs. I think Fortune Seller, I hate the... Oh, wait, no. I was thinking Man in the Moon. Fortune Seller is okay. It's not great, but it's passable. Man in the Moon, I never liked at all. I don't like the vocal melodies. I don't like the way that synthesizer sounds throughout the thing. It's just not good.
No.
Wanderlove has some really beautiful guitar moments. Love Shines has some good keyboard moments. A lot of people say that this album's biggest failing is the fact that there's so little contribution from John Anderson and Steve Howe. I don't necessarily know how much I agree with that, because From the Balcony is the one song that they actually did contribute. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it's the worst song on this whole album. But I will tell you which song really pissed me off. And you'll know why as soon as I say it.
Yeah.
The final track on the album, The Solution. The solution to what? I don't know, but it certainly wasn't the solution to fixing this fucking album. Because, like, Yes has always had a penchant for making excellent long-form, epic songs. We see that with Close to the Edge, The Gates of Delirium, most of Topographic Oceans, even later on with the stuff on keys. So when you see a song that's like 24 minutes on a Yes album, you start to get excited. You think, okay, like even if the rest of this album hasn't been stellar, they're going to melt our faces off with an amazing epic. And to listen to the album and find out that it's a 5-minute song that has 24 minutes left of waterfall noises and vocal clips from throughout the entire album. Yeah. That alone makes it the worst Yes album. There's still some good songs, but all in all, bad way to introduce Billy into the band, especially for how good a bass player, vocalist, guitar player he is. And he redeems himself a good bit later, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Deb, your 24th.
I'm also going to go with Open Your Eyes. If you watch some of the story of Yes or biographies and stuff, I think it's pretty well known that both Chris Squire and John Anderson in the late 70s had very lavish lifestyles. I think even during the making of Tornado, this is one of the things that was upsetting other people. I think I was reading or seeing that Eddie Jobson did not want to replace Rick Wakeman because he was didn't see himself being in that lavish lifestyle that these guys were living. And there's nothing wrong with living it up if you can make the money. But obviously, in the 90125 era, there was probably some pretty good money which kept these guys in their lavish lifestyle. And it seems to me that Open Your Eyes may have been an attempt to regain some of the commercial high points.
There is that commercial element very prominent in the entire album.
That the early Trevor Rabin era had been able to achieve. And obviously they couldn't do it without somebody to write some kind of hit song. And I agree with Phil that the first few tracks, whether it's 3 or 4, somewhere in there, are very good. And then it kind of fades after that. And so it's not really much of a Yes album. Like the first few songs were what the rest of the album was, it probably would have been a pretty good album, but that's not what happened. And it is, although they don't have really, really bad albums in their catalog, this one this is pretty close to being a bad album. I mean, it's a very mediocre Yes album. So, yeah, I'd say it's the worst.
All right, so here we go. This is where I just decide to go absolutely off the rails. Ready? My number 24 is indeed the ever-loved 1989's Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe. And my issues with this just are as follows. I know how much Yes fans actually enjoy this thing, and especially when it came out, because it sounds like Yes in the late 80s, right? Immediately with themes, I didn't like it. I didn't love the themes off the bat. It's everything I don't love about Yes in a song. I get it's not Yes. There's no Squire, and no disrespect to Tony Levin. Squire's presence is missed here. The songs here feel flat because of that, in my opinion. Plus, I almost hate the production of this. From the drums, I don't love the electric drums myself, and the acoustic drums are a little bit too sharp for my taste. Eddie Offord would have been a great addition for this if he were available, but alas, that didn't happen. And this is the final product. I'm just not a big fan. My standout tracks are Brother of Mine, Birthright, Quartet, and Let's Pretend. Those are my 4 tracks that I enjoyed off of Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe. That so far my least favorite quote unquote Yes album that has been released so far. Phil, you're number 23, please.
Okay. Sorry about that earlier. I had to take a call real quick. Made it back in time to talk about this borderline disaster piece. Union.
Yeah.
From 1991. The Super Yes. Not
Ish.
really. So this is another album that like half of the songs are really good. Like a good, like the bottom 3 on my list. Really, the bottom 4. I'm not even gonna finish saying that because like 3 of the bottom 4 of my list have the same issue in that half of the songs are really good, and then half of the songs I just don't care about at all. This is a prime example. Obviously, this was formed out of the split between what was called Yes West at the time and ABWH. ABWH was hard at work at their second album as a group, and then that ended up getting morphed into a Yes album with some material from the Yes West camp. Not very much material from the Yes West camp. And honestly, I think that is one of the big failings of this because it's very much dominated by the ABWH material. And a lot of the ABWH material on here is good. But a lot of it also isn't. I really, really don't like the first track on the album, I Would Have Waited Forever. The chorus is cool. These verses are awkward as hell. It is cool to see that Chris Squire did perform backing vocals on a couple of these ABWH tracks.
Right.
That's one positive. But a big negative is for an album called Union, and it's supposed to have all 8 members they're all 8 members that Yes is known for.
Yeah.
Why not have all of them play on every single song? Not even at the same room. You could send each group in the band, each like half,
What
the
a
songs
concept.
from the other half, and have them add their parts, have them play some stuff on it, contribute to that. That would be a proper union. That's not what they did. And what they ended up doing was getting freaking Jimmy Hahn to replace a lot of Steve Howe's work on his songs, and a literal army of keyboard players to replace Rick. And why do that? I have no fucking idea. Mm-hmm. But the end result suffered as a result. Yep. Again, some of these tracks are really good. I do actually really like track 2, Shock to the System. Masquerade is a really great Steve Howe solo guitar piece. Lift Me Up is really good. Saving My Heart is okay. Miracle of Life is fucking killer, especially that intro. That destroys. I think the best song on here is The More We Live, the one that Chris wrote with Billy on this album. And then Evan's song, that little short instrumental piece between Bill Bruford and Tony Levin. I always thought that was cool. But aside from that, a lot of these songs really just are not that great. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this album is so long. This album was really a product of its time in that CDs were just starting to become accepted by wider society, and because you could fit so much more music on CDs, labels and artists thought that was exactly what you needed to do. And the end result here is a 15 track, usually 14, but the version I have has Give and Take as the final track. Is freaking just bloated with filler songs. A lot of them are not good. What they should have done was cut out like 3 or 4 at least songs off of this. Should have had more songs from the Yes West. And instead of relying on session players, they should have just brought in the members from the other camp to finish out the songs that were written by the other guys.
Yeah.
That's what they should have done. They didn't. It was a bad move.
Yep.
This is the second worst Yes album.
All right.
I already listed my highlights. That's all I got.
Dad, you're number 23.
I'm actually going to go back to the debut. It's still, like a lot of debut albums, it's a band that really hasn't found their sound at all yet. Survival is good and pretty catchy, and it sounds a bit like what they were aiming for, but a lot of it is still just reaching for what they were going to be, and
mostly not getting it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to say it's better than Open Your Eyes, but
So, I'm going to go ahead and agree with Phil. My number 23 is also Union. Okay, so I don't like the conflicting writing found in here. I don't love how there's a billion session musicians here. Like a freaking war zone took over, and it's just like, good lord. Everyone's just coming in. No one's coming in and doing their own parts, which is so disappointing because that is such an interesting idea. The idea of having Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe, and the Trevor Rabin era, yes, come together and form one big band and have a huge big tour. That must have been fantastic. That must have been amazing. The tour must have been fantastic. This album is a
live
disgrace.
album that they released.
I've
That they
seen
released
some
from
of
that
it on
is
YouTube.
fantastic.
It's great. This album is a disgrace. There's some really good stuff on this album, but I don't want to have to listen through like half bad songs because they wanted to fill up the entire CD. I really love Miracle of Life. I think that that's a great track. But come on, I don't want to listen through half the album to actually get to something I enjoy. Maybe I'm just not a fan of this Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, this album just ain't doing it for me. Sorry, this just ain't doing it. My standout tracks are I personally enjoy I Would Have Waited Forever. It's a decent, yes, a kind of 90s throwback 80s yes song. It's okay. Masquerade is really, really pretty. I really did enjoy that. Miracle of Life, like I said, and you have already said as well, Phil, it's very good. And I did like Angkor Wat. I really enjoyed that too. I do believe that
that is one I forgot to mention. That is a good one.
I think that there may have been more that I remember. Maybe The More We Live as well. Oh, Evan's song. Take the Water to the Mountain. I don't remember. But a decent album. It's just not something I'm gonna throw on all the time. All right, number 22, Phil.
All right. So, number 22. This is where everybody's going to hate me.
All right.
Tormato. The big issue I have with Tormato really stems from the production.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, at this point, Eddie Offord was gone.
Mm-hmm.
He was gone on Going for the One as well. So,
Yeah.
but this one, you could really tell that the wheels were starting to fall off on this album. The band were not seeing eye to eye. It shows in the writing and how they just constructed this album.
Yeah.
Most of the songs are actually really good. Like Future Times Rejoice is incredible. I really like Madrigal, the beautiful harpsichord from Rick, Steve Howe's acoustic guitar playing on
Yep.
there is sublime. John's vocal melodies are really pretty.
Yeah.
Release is generally seen as their attempt at a punk track, and it is really actually surprisingly good. It's better than Queen's Sheer Heart Attack. I will absolutely say that. After that, it does take a little bit of a nosedive. I do not care for Arrival UFO at all, aside from some keyboard passages from Rick. And then Circus of Fucking Heaven. I absolutely hate everything about that fucking song. It is, without question, the worst Yes song to that point. Maybe the worst Yes song of all time. I have not decided. But it is bad. It is very, very fucking bad.
Okay.
Fortunately, after that, we go into Onward, a love
beautiful.
song written by Chris Squire. There's some moments on there in the keyboards and whatever Steve Howe was running his guitar through that made it sound like a SNES video game, which I actually kind of enjoy, so that didn't bother me. And the song itself is beautiful, especially when the orchestra comes in. It's pretty. It's a good song. No issues there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, On the Silent Wings of Freedom is excellent, but the bad production throughout most of this album, along with the two just duds on this, really just bring it down as low as it is.
Okay. Dad, you're number 22.
My number 22 is Time and a Word. So the follow up to the sophomore album.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's the same thing as the debut. They haven't really found their sound yet.
Yeah.
With the exception of the track Astral Traveler,
Mm-hmm.
which is really the song that hints at what's to come
Mm.
and does sound like what, has the real Yes sound to it. So that's the standout track.
Mm-hmm.
But, the rest of it's still just a band just trying to find its sound.
All right. So I don't have the physical album with me. I wish I did, but my number 22 is going to be the 2014 production Heaven and Earth. It's poorly produced, unfortunately, and that's what brings it down a little bit. That is notable about this album, for sure. However, some of those songs are banging. I do think it's lacking a ton of brilliance here and there. The soft rock / AOR label they got on this album is earned, and I don't think it works all the way through. Also, the drums sound. Let's not. I don't want to put any stain on Alan White's name, but yikes, that was not a very well produced. I don't want to make it sound like I'm criticizing him, but the great pieces to be found can be found here. But if you want a quality Yes album, I suggest looking elsewhere. Standout tracks are Believe Again, Step Beyond, To Ascend, and Light of the Ages. I think that those were all really great tracks, but kind of more reminiscent of early Yes rather than like classic Yes. and a lot more on the soft rock side as well. So, Phil, you're number 21.
All right. Number 21. You guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think you're ready.
I'm ready.
My number 21 is Big Generator.
Oh.
1987, the second album with Trevor Rabin. And like I said, 3 out of my bottom 4 are as low as they are because there are like half the songs I really, really like, and the other half I just don't care about. And this is a prime example of that. I like how the Rhythm of Love starts. I like that violin kind of grandiose entrance with the little, I don't know if that's a flute or whatever the hell, that little trill sound. You know what I'm talking about, before the backing vocal ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
come in. I think
Really
that
good.
is all beautiful.
Kind of Beach Boysy.
A little bit. The song itself proper does jack for me.
Aww.
I don't like the vocal melodies. Instrumentally, it's all right. I don't like the vocal melodies. The chorus does nothing for me. And that guitar solo is not great, but I will say it's better than anything Steve Howe does whenever he tries to play a guitar solo for this song live. Now, Big Generator, the title track. I do not give a fuck about this song at all. There is nothing here that grabs me in the slightest. But the same cannot be said for Shoot High, Aim Low, which I think is an incredible song. The way that John and Trevor bounce off each other in the verses, the chorus is great. I love how like subtle the instrumentation is, but it's still very effective. Trevor Rabin does absolutely incredible guitar work throughout. All around fantastic song.
Yeah.
Then we get into Almost Like Love, and I despise this song greatly.
Yeah, it's not great.
I don't like the lyrics at all. I don't like the fake horn sounds that they used on this. At least it sounds fake. If they actually did get a horn section for this, I'd be very surprised and actually kind of impressed at how badly they could fuck up a horn section.
Yeah.
But I think it's fake. I think it's synthesized. And it is just not good. However, the next 3 tracks, Love Will Find a Way, is a pop song written solely by Trevor, but it is absolutely fantastic. The guitar work on it is amazing. The harmonies throughout, excellent. The little harmonica solo that Chris Squire does at the end, I love that. And Finalize is beautiful. I love everything about Finalize, and I can say the exact same thing about I'm Running. Fantastic bass line, fantastic instrumentation throughout. I love everything about that. No notes. And then Holy Lamb is the closer, and it's another one that does jack and fuck all to me. I don't care for that at all. So that's my analysis of Big Generator. Half of it's great. Half of it is just not good.
Dad, you're number 21.
So I noticed that in doing this list that it's a lot about the different eras of Yes, about whether you like a particular lineup.
Yeah.
If the lineup starts out not in the direction that you favor, it seems to not matter that another album comes out in that direction. You don't like it either. So, the latest incarnation started out with Heaven and Earth, which is my number 21. And I thought it was pretty weak, although obviously John Davison has the perfect John Anderson copy voice. He's got the voice right down for the band, but I don't know. I think it's the writing on this is just very weak. And you said it was a little bit more AOR. I'm not really sure that it's AOR. it's trying to go back to the sort of late 60s, early 70s, yes, but without of any of the flair. And
Yeah,
the
I can remember
songwriting's
that.
just not there. And you can put this album on, and after you've done with it, you can't remember a single thing you heard. It's a very dull album.
Mm.
So I don't know. 21 for me is Heaven and Earth.
All right, my number 21 is going to be the album titled Yes, the self-titled album from '69. I definitely think that this is an album of its time. It sounds like a '60s album. It's kind of played like a '60s album, and it does have a ton of moments where it lacks even the traditional rock sound, which I believe was already kind of in production with stuff like Sgt. Pepper and In the Court. So you can't tell me it didn't exist. There are moments where I'm thinking, this is just Yes, but then others where I'm wavering in and out of the '60s, and it both doesn't work and kind of works for me. Standout tracks are I See You, Yesterday and Today, Looking Around. Sweetness is awesome, and Survival is apparently a classic played at a lot of their concerts. So, number 20, Phil.
All right. Number 20 is Heaven and Earth.
All right.
I probably like this album a little bit more than I'm sure I like it a lot more than Brian does. But the problems with this album, most of them stem from the choice of producer and the amount of time they had to record it. John Davison pretty much admitted to the second one. They ran out of time in the studio. I think they should have given themselves more time to properly flesh out these songs, because I'm going to disagree. I think the songwriting is actually there. It's just not presented well because of the factors I listed. And honestly, the choice of producer, I think, might have done more harm than even the amount of time they had to record it. I think that Roy Thomas Baker is an incredible producer in his own right. He's produced for Queen. He's produced for a bunch of other great classic bands. But we know his production style, and that production style does not fit with a band like Yes. And I think his involvement in this project very much was to its detriment. I defend this album mostly because, despite all of that, the songs themselves are still there. They are still good songs. It needs help.
Plus, let's be honest, that cover is fantastic.
Oh yeah, this is one of Roger Dean's best, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Believe Again is a beautiful song.
Beautiful.
I think The Game is also great. Step Beyond I kind of like. It took me a while, but the keyboards eventually won me over. And here's something I'm going to say. Some of these songs could be greatly helped by speeding them up just a little bit. I think that Step Beyond should be a little bit faster. I think A Light of the Ages could be a little bit faster. I love that song. But I think the one that needs to be improved with speed the most is In a World of Our Own. So I'm going to say this. Whoever's watching this, if you've heard this album, if you have it, and you have a program that you can speed up songs without necessarily changing the pitch, listen to In a World of Our Own. Sounds kind of lifeless. Sounds kind of boring. Sounds like a slog. It is very fucking slow. Speed it up by 15%. You'll think, where did that come from? Immediately, it's livelier. I think there still needs to be some changes to the arrangement. I think the piano sound they chose on that could have been improved. And obviously the drums, another problem with Roy Thomas Baker. But I also actually will put a little bit of the blame on Alan, because he was in a stage of his life where he just could not play drums as good as he used to, and it shows. I think I think this album should be remixed, and I think that they should bring in. I think it should be given like a return trip treatment where the arrangements are changed a little bit. Some songs are sped up. The production is overhauled greatly. If Jay Shellen has to go in and play over Alan's drumming, that's, I guess, what has to happen
All right.
because, like, this album needs help. And
Right.
obviously, we don't have Alan anymore to give that help. And even if we could, I just don't think he really had it anymore. But I still defend this album as good because, like I said before, the songs are there. I'll briefly touch on my highlights because I only went through a few of them. Like I said, Believe Again. I really like the game. To Ascend is gorgeous. Light of the Ages is another one that's great.
Right.
And of course, the final track, Subway Walls.
All right. Dad, you're number 20.
My number 20 is The Quest. I think this is a much improvement over Heaven and Earth, and I was with this album. I'm starting to warm to this lineup. I think the standout track is the first track, which is the Ice Bridge, which I like quite a bit. I think the one weakness in this lineup is I'm not a massive fan of Jeff Downs' keyboard playing. I like him. I like his style of keyboard playing better in Asia than in Yes. He just doesn't have enough flash and intricacy and complexity for what should be the Yes sound. But I think it's kind of minor because if the song is good, as long as you play within the context of what the song is, I'm good with that. So
Yeah.
this is kind of, kind of like as I say, I'm warming up to this lineup and the direction that they're going, and starting to sound good.
All right. So, my number 20 is Open Your Eyes from 1997. What a start, eh? What a start. And then also kind of disappointing. The start of this album is so strong. It's got great production. I love the vocals. I love the mix. The guitars sound absolutely fantastic to me. Howe and Sherwood did wonderful to me, I think. However, other than the first three songs, like Phil said, this album has maybe three other songs that work before it just loses its mind entirely. It's too cheesy. It's not really Yes. I have nothing more to say other than what a missed opportunity. This really could have been good. This could have been good. It didn't end up being good. The standout tracks to me are New State of Mind, which is fantastic. I love that one. It grew on me like after 2 listens. Open Your Eyes is a really catchy tune. Universal Garden is one of the most incredible songs they wrote within the 80s and 90s, I'm going to say. Point blank. Just putting it on the table. I don't care. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. I don't mind No Way We Can Lose. It's catchy, but it's also not appropriate for a Yes album. I personally like From the Balcony. It's got a lot of the Steve Howe guitar playing there, and I like it there. And I like some of Love Shine as well. But otherwise, the rest of it, goodbye. Number 19, Phil.
Number 19, I am going with the debut, the 1969 debut.
Uh-huh.
Like you guys said, it's very much a product of the 60s, and it's a band that really you could tell that the seeds of what they were going to be later on were present even at this time,
True.
but they were just planted. They had just barely begun to take root. There's still some really good songs on here, like you guys say, Survival, definitely a hint of what's to come. Beyond and Before, the opening track, I wasn't sure how I felt about that opening guitar riff that just do 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 do
Yeah, neither
like
was I.
that. But it eventually grew on me. And the reason it grew on me mostly is the vocals. I think the vocal harmonies between Anderson, Squire, and Peter Banks are fantastic throughout this whole thing. They sound very much like the Beatles, which makes perfect sense as they were clearly influenced by the Beatles. Hell, every little thing I'm pretty sure every little thing is a Beatles cover.
Oh wow.
Also, there's I think it's the Birds song "I See You." I really like their cover of that. Yesterday and Today,
Yep.
very soft, very mellow, very heartfelt and sad sounding, and it works. I don't have anything bad to say about that.
Right.
Looking around, some interesting organ from Tony Kaye, but overall, this one didn't really do anything for me. Don't really remember Harold Land that much. And I already mentioned Every Little Thing. It's a Beatles cover. They do the song justice, but it is just that. And Sweetness was actually their first single ever released as a single. And it's okay. It's not fantastic. It's not one of the stronger songs on the album, but it's all right. That's really what I got. It's a decent debut for a band that would become so much better later on.
All right. That's your number 19.
Okay, I'm gonna say Mirror to the Sky.
All right.
I think it's a lot like The Quest. It's very similar. I think that this album is not spectacular, but it does give you sort of hope for the future of what's to come. Maybe if they got Igor Korshev back or something like that, or maybe Oliver Wakeman or something, or even Rick Wakeman, but so put some pizzazz into it because it is still missing that, the sort of fire. But it's a good follow up to The Quest, and I like the direction they're going in right now. So I think it's good, not great, but it's good.
All right. All right. So my number 19 is going to be the tracks from the Key Studio One set. It's cool. It's well written, yes. Nothing stands out entirely, besides a few parts of each epic. There's nothing bad about this at all. Just nothing stands out in particular. If you want half an hour of yes that has a classic lineup and decently written, go check it out, I guess. But if you want something that's really good to great, a really great yes experience, you aren't getting that here. No standout tracks. Be the one in that is are both good. Nothing special though. Number 18, Phil.
Number 18, I am going to go with 90125, the 1983 comeback album. This is Trevor Rabin's first album with the band, and it's got some gold. Owner of a Lonely Heart, obviously the big hit single. It's all right. It's definitely deserving of being a hit single. I don't think it necessarily deserves to be the most popular Yes song, but I'm not going to complain about it being it because it is a good song. Whenever it comes on, I'm not gonna turn it off. I'll probably pretend to sing along because I know I can't because John Anderson's voice is way too fucking high for me. I ain't replacing John Davison in Yes anytime soon. That is followed by what I consider to be the worst song on the album, Hold On. I say worst, but it's not a bad song. It's just nothing spectacular.
Right.
I don't particularly care for the vocal melodies on it. They're not bad, but it doesn't do a whole lot for me. I think It Can Happen is a really good song. I love It Can Happen. Especially the chorus and the Trevor Rabin does a lot of really great keyboard work on here in addition to his guitar work. Most of the keyboard work he does, because a lot of people don't realize that even though Tony Kaye is the keyboard player in the band, most of the keyboard work on these albums are done by Trevor Rabin.
Hmm.
And
Makes sense.
most of what Tony Kaye does is either some piano on some songs or some Hammond organ, but he is not as present as his member status in the band would lead you to believe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Changes is another
Fantastic.
killer song. It's probably tied with another song that I'm going to get into in a minute for best song on the album. Cinema is hold on first. Brilliant vocals from Trevor Rabin on this. Trevor Rabin is a phenomenal lead singer as well as guitar player and keyboard player. He was definitely an asset for Yes during this time period. Cinema, the little 2-minute instrumental, which I actually found out recently is a snippet of a much longer piece that didn't end up actually making the cut.
It should have.
It probably should have, because if this was anything to go by,
it would have been perfect.
I want to hear the full version, what that was going to be.
Yeah,
that would have been cool.
That would have
Leave
been great.
It is probably the most different song on this album. The mostly keyboards, not a lot of guitars on it, and it's dominated by the little a cappella stuff that Trevor and Chris were doing on it. It's cool. I can see why they released it as a single, and that music video is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Our song and City of Love are okay, but they're not as standout as the other songs that were mentioned. And like I said, Changes is tied with another song on this album for best on the album, and that is Hearts, the closer on this. And absolutely, this is the closest we get to classic 70s Yes on this album, and it is fantastic.
Yeah.
Trevor and John both have absolutely stellar vocal parts. They trade off one another very well. I love this song so much. It's mostly where it is on the list because of the fact that everything else is just better. 90125 is number 18. Solid album. Worthy of the Yes name. Fuck off, haters.
Yeah. All right, Dad, you're number 18.
Number 18, I have Magnification. I like this album quite a bit. I don't know, missing the keyboard flourishes, and but I like the orchestra, the idea of the orchestra and everything, and the songwriting is great. But because it doesn't have sort of that classic keyboard flourishes and guitar solos and stuff like that, it's just, for me, it's a bit kind of in the middle. It's okay.
My number 18 will be 2021's The Quest. It's the follow-up to The Heaven and Earth, and I think it's decent. It's the Howe, Sherwood, Davison era, yes. It's not bad. It has great moments. It's well produced. It's got some of the classic Yes tropes, just not tickling the happy place in the ear, you know what I mean? Kind of just Yes by numbers. Standout tracks are The Ice Bridge, which really grew on me after a while. I like the interplay between Jeff Downes and Steve Howe as good as they can do, and it's really good. It sounds good. It's well done. They do a decent job. Dare to Know is really, really good. I like that song a lot. Leave Well Alone is pretty okay. Future Memories is good, and Living Island is pretty good too. Number 17, Phil.
All right. My number 17, I am going with The Quest.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I don't know if I can even say it was the follow-up to Heaven and Earth because of just how long it had been in between albums.
True.
Obviously, this is the first
7
album
years.
without Chris Squire. Billy Sherwood comes back in the band after being absent for so long, replacing him on bass at his request. And he does an absolutely stellar job, both live and throughout both this and the other album, Mirror to the Sky. I think The Ice Bridge is a stellar song from beginning to end. It could honestly be like 3 to 4 minutes longer just from Steve Howe and Jeff Downes playing some, going back and forth on their instruments, and I would not be complaining at all. Dare to Know is great. A little bit more, a lot more laid back, but some really beautiful orchestra moments.
Yeah.
I think a big complaint I have, and a lot of people have for this album, is not that it's Jeff Downes on keyboards. It's the fact that he's barely here. And the fact that a lot of these songs, especially, we'll get to Mirror later on my list, but like Dare to Know and Minus the Man are primarily orchestra driven.
I like the orchestra on those
And
ones, honestly.
the orchestra's great. I just wish it didn't come at the expense of the keyboards. And
Tiny bit, yeah.
speaking of Minus the Man, that is another great track for me. John Davison's vocal harmonies are fantastic on the whole thing. I wish we had more. Okay. I need to talk about this. There are a bunch of songs on this album that are pretty much all of them written by Steve Howe, where I don't know if it was Steve himself or the band as a whole decided that they would have Steve be performing co-lead vocals or at least strong backing vocals with John Davison on this. And I'm sorry, Steve, I love you. You're an amazing guitar player. So much of what you write is timeless. Your work in Yes is amazing. Your solo work is amazing. You are not a singer. Straight up. You are not a singer. And this is actually something that Pete Pardo of Sea of Tranquility said in his review of the Quest, which I agree with, is that it seems like they were trying, because Chris Squire was always such a presence in the backing vocals. Always.
Yep.
Like, he was always there with John singing along either in unison or singing really beautiful 2-part harmonies and 3-part harmonies along with Howe as the third vocalist. And it seems like what they're trying to do with this is that they are trying to recreate the Chris Squire element of the vocals by using Steve Howe. And it's not a good idea. It is a terrible idea for 2 reasons. Because Steve does not have the power in his voice. He does not have the range. His voice is very low. It's very deep. It's very warm. It is not suitable for strong backing vocals being like for either 2-part harmonies or as the lead singer for a band like Yes. And it's also not a good idea because there's another member of the band named Billy Sherwood who does have that voice, who does sound an awful lot like Chris. And I think that's one of the reasons that they got along so well, is because they were so similar. You can tell how much Chris has influenced Billy. And he should be the one singing on these songs with John Davison. But he's not. For most of this album, I think he's got like backing vocals on like 3, maybe 4 songs in total out of the 9.
Yeah.
And including the bonus disc. And that's honestly the biggest issue I have with that, and the lack of energy on a lot of these songs. Like, most of the material is very good, but it needed a little bit more energy. It needed more of Billy singing. It needed less of Howe singing.
Yeah.
And it it really needed more drums because a lot of the problems that the drumming had on Heaven and Earth, while the drums sound a lot better in terms of how they actually sound, the drum playing is even less energetic and less interesting than it was on Heaven and Earth, which is very unfortunate. I think that I don't know what Jay Shellen did on this album. It says he was a part of it, providing some additional percussion. But if you look at the booklet on here, if you have it, one of the things they started doing on like drama is they would list all the instruments that they would all play. And on this one, they actually have it listed track by track. You could see what the band members were all playing. And Jay Shellen's not listed at all. Not even like given a mention on any of these songs. I don't know what he did, if anything, but what he should have done was play drums along with Alan to give these songs more energy. That would have helped greatly. But I'm already talking too much about this, so I'm just going to end with a brief touch of what my standout tracks were. Obviously, I said The Ice Bridge, Dare to Know, and Minus the Man. I'm not a huge fan of Leave Well Alone, primarily because of Steve's backing vocals.
Yeah.
But I really do love the Western Edge. Here Billy is singing and he sounds great. Future Memories is beautiful. A Living Island I liked up until the final part of the song with the lyrics about, well, I'm not going to say what the lyrics are about because I don't want to get political at all.
Yeah.
But
let's not.
needless, but I'm just gonna say those lyrics aged like fucking milk. And then the bonus disc, I'm gonna briefly touch on. A lot of people don't like the bonus disc on this album at all. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I will say I really like Sister Sleeping Soul, and I think that this might be one of the closest John Davison has gotten to sounding like John Anderson. It's crazy how close it is. But that's really what I got. Really good album. Could have been better. And fortunately, they got better. A lot better. But I'll get to that later.
All right, Dad, number 17.
Number 17, I will go with Union. Again, it's, as has already been stated, it's a mix of the Trevor Rabin sort of talk era group with the Anderson, Bruford, Wickman, and Howe stuff, and there's not really any point in time where there's really the union of all the members. It's like recording sessions from each one of those follow-ups for Anderson, Bruford, Wickman, and Howe and stuff, but it's still got some decent songs, and overall it still sounds pretty good. I mean, we know the Rick Wakeman reaction to this album was he called the album Onion because every time he heard it he cried, and Phil has alluded to the fact that much of his keyboard parts were removed and overwritten by session musicians. So I think that's a real big drawback to this album possibly going higher. Yes, the songs may be there, but if you take out Rick Wakeman's keyboard playing on the tracks that are most likely to draw the traditional Yes fan, it's a bit of a tragedy, really. So, again, it's got its moments, but especially if you like, some of the later Trevor Rabin era stuff, and you like Anderson, Bruford, Wickman, and Howe, I'm sure you could find some tracks on this album that you would really enjoy.
Like I think Phil and I have said, it's kind of a missed opportunity album.
Yep, I agree.
So my number 17 is going to be 1970s Chime in a Word. On and off is the best way I can describe it. I love the attempt at an orchestra here. It's well done in spots for sure. Not every song works for me. Some are still stuck in that 60s debut sound, and I'm not upset about it, but I'm also not happy about it. While some sound reminiscent of the Yes album in the future. Great! It's Cool. It's a good album overall, non-essential though. Standout tracks are Then, Every Days, Sweet Dreams, Astral Traveler is fantastic, obviously, and the song Time and a Word is great. So there you go. My number 17, Phil. Your number 16, please.
All right. This was actually a last minute change from just shortly before we actually started record, probably like about an hour before we started recording. I made the executive
Oh.
decision to switch 2 albums
All right.
that were right next to each other. So list didn't really change much at all except for just this. Anderson, Burford, Wakeman, and Howe is my number 16. The album that obviously at this point, yes, was going in a direction that John Anderson was just not feeling anymore. So he says, I don't know how much I believe that because right in between Big Generator and this album, he put out the solo album In the City of Angels, which if you know that album, you know it sounds like Toto because it is Toto. Not a complaint. I love that album. But I wanted to do something that was more akin to 70s, yes, in the late 80s. And he went and got Bill Bruford, Rick Wakeman, and Steve Howe to come in, write, and record this album together. And I like this quite a bit more than Zoltan obviously does. It's not one of my favorites by any stretch, but I think it's really good.
Sorry.
I do actually really like Themes. That beginning intro where it's like really subtle. Rick's doing the piano in front of that, like on top of that, like really fast synth arpeggio. And then Bill Bruford's drum comes in. It's loud. It's definitely fake drums, but I don't give a shit. It's fun the way he comes in. His drumming throughout this entire thing is spot on. I will honestly go on record and say that I like Bill Bruford way more than Alan White. Not that I don't love Alan, but Bruford is the better drummer.
He's Bruford. Let's be honest. It's Bruford. No mistake
Fist
in
of
that.
Fire is another great one. Brother of Mine. Birthright is fantastic. I love that song. Quartet is really cool.
Weird lyrics on
Tikwa. I think that's how you pronounce it. The one that sounds like a fucking 80s prog dance party on the beach. Those synthesizers suck ass, and I don't care. I love them. Steve Howe's guitar work on that song is great. The acoustic guitar stuff he does. I actually like the vocal melodies that John Anderson is singing. I honestly love the Bobby Dread and the Cool Run-In part of that song. It's cheesy. It's 80s as hell. And I don't care. It's cheesier than any power metal you could ever listen to, and I love it. Order of the Universe is another one that's really good. Let's Pretend is a great way to close off the album. Is it Yes at their best? No. Is it Yes at all? Other than the fact that it's got Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe, as the name suggests. No. It's close enough to Yes that it warrants a spot in their discography and on this list. And it's really good, despite what people say. This is an album that divides the fan base. A lot of them like it. A lot of them don't. I am obviously in the former.
All right, Dad, you're number 16.
I am also going to go with the Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe album. I think that this album came at a time when the core fan base of Yes was craving to hear the old guys do it again. Although I agree with your assessment, Zoltan, that some of the production and the drum sounds and stuff at the beginning of themes is a little bit too 80s. Still, overall, it still had enough of a harking back to the classic lineup, of going for the one type thing, that it was enough that it fed the desire of slightly older Yes fans who wanted to hear something that was more of a 70s Yes.
Hmm.
And I remember going to see them at the CNE, which is the Canadian National Exhibition
Yeah.
in Toronto, on that tour, and they did Close to the Edge and stuff like that, and it was absolutely amazing.
All right.
And it kept all of the old Yes fans just, I loved it. So, I mean, I don't know about that. The song that Phil mentioned, is it Tikwa or whatever it is?
Teak Boys or Teak Boy.
I
I don't know.
think,
It's some kind of like the OIS at the end is like French sounding, I think.
Yeah, it looks. Yeah, it looks that too. I don't know.
but to me, I think there was a lot of, John must have got into a lot of Mesoamerican indigenous culture type stuff, like Mayan and Aztec type stuff. That's where it seems to me the influence is coming from, some kind of sort of, because if you go back to Tales from Topographic Oceans, it's obvious that he fell in love with, you know, uh, whatever is it, Hindu or whatever.
Yeah, Hindu.
So he may have moved on from that into sort of Mesoamerican
Hmm.
religious themes. And I think that's where he's drawing that influence from, which just shows that he likes those sort of spiritual, ancient religions from anywhere he can get it in the world.
Mm.
He can
Yeah.
relate to that. So, I mean, I sort of get it that way, and I kind of like it myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I may not understand what he's talking about. I assume that he does.
Hmm.
I also assume that almost nobody in the audience understands anything of what he's trying to get across.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because it's his persona, right? The mystic kind of thing.
True.
But yeah, again, because it gave him enough of a flavor of the classic 70s. Yes, I tell you, being there at the time, the people who loved Yes, we just ate it up. We loved it. So I think it's worthy. It's borderline a classic thing, but it's not quite classic Yes, but it's up there. It's great stuff.
Hmm.
Back to you, Zoltan.
All right. So this is where I'm going to introduce uh this little segment. We are talking about 25 albums technically. However, this is where I'm going to interject the 25th. It's not numbered. I'm going to talk about From a Page from 2019. I really think that it has some really nice songs for the start of the mini album. But I don't love From the Turn of a Card. For me, it's not great. Didn't work for me. Gift of Love was okay. Had Oliver Wakeman been given a little bit more time with this band, I think he could have shaped up to be one of the future cornerstones of this band, honestly. Sadly, we got no such incarnation of this other than the effort that exists. It's good, nothing special. Maybe we'll see something similar in the future. I don't know. The standout tracks are To the Moment and Words on a Page. Now to my actual number 16, Magnification from 2001. This album is just a step above Time and a Word. I like this work better, and I love the idea of having a symphony behind the genius of Yes. However, it falls flat for me from time to time. I think there are times the orchestra was perfect and did everything it could to help the band. And there are times where I thought it was damaging my enjoyment of the music because it was too atonal almost. I am almost I think mixed grab bag for me. The standout tracks are "Give Love Each Day," "Can You Imagine," "Soft as a Dove is Beautiful," "Dream Time," "In the Presence of," and "Time is Time I Like." So number 15, Phil.
Okay. Well, since you talked about From a Page, I'll briefly touch on it before I get into my number 15. Obviously, this is something that was cooked up in 2010 when they were starting the sessions for what eventually became Fly From Here. Most of these songs, I think all of them were primarily written by Oliver Wakeman. Was he the sole writer on all of them? I know he was a sole writer
Yeah, he
on
was the
3.
sole writer for almost everything on this album, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And he wrote some good songs for this, I'm not going to lie.
He did. He really did. He had a yes tone.
Yeah. And obviously Benoit David, phenomenal singer for
singer.
however long he was in the band before his voice finally gave out and he couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, we did get some really good stuff on this. I think To the Moment is fantastic.
Yep.
Words on a Page is great. I actually really love The Gift of Love, the almost 10-minute song at the end. I think that's probably the best song on this album. Or EP, I should say, because that's what it is, and honestly, that's why it's not
Being
on the
listed
list proper.
officially, yeah.
Is because it is not an album.
Yeah.
It is an EP.
Yeah.
And it's an EP of material that was shelved for over 10 years before they finally released it.
Yep.
With that out of the way, let's get into my proper number 15. And I'm going to be showing this twice on this list because this is how I have Keys to Ascension. I have a 4-disc set. Or no, it's actually 5 discs, including the DVD.
I see.
Of Keys to Ascension 1, 2, and a DVD of the concert.
Right.
The DVD is not very good.
Aw.
But and it's not very good because it's not presented well in terms of the concert recording. Basically, the recording on this is just the live songs from these 2 discs, and the mix and recording is exactly the same. It's the video that's the problem. But we can get into that some other time.
Yeah.
I'm talking specifically about the 2 studio tracks off of Keys 1, Be the One, and That Is.
Right.
I honestly really like Be the One. I like it a lot more than That Is. That Is, I think, is good, but it's good in spite of a few moments in there that, honestly, if they were not there, it could even be great. It's a very short album, and only 30 minutes, but it's long enough to be considered an album. If this would all fit no problem on one vinyl.
Yeah.
And so it's short, it's to the point, and the point is number 15.
All right then. Dash, your number 15.
I'm also going to go with the first Keys to Ascension. And I think at the time, Wakeman was back and all that stuff, and it was kind of like a continuation of the Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe thing, and that Yes was really back together as sort of the 70s Yes era band and all that stuff. I mean, studio tracks, amazing stuff, and again, not classic Yes, but still good stuff.
Okay.
So again, it's a very good Yes for that era. I think it's good.
Right. So my number 15 is going to be the 1978 effort Tormato. A very good effort from the lineup that pushed going for the one. I think it has its ups and downs. It's not wonderfully produced for one. Release doesn't work for me at all. Neither does Don't Kill the Whale. But there are some standout tracks. I just wish that this lineup had one more effort. Just one. One more effort. Give me one actual effort. That isn't a
Keys to
conglomerate.
Ascension.
No, that isn't a terrible management project that Keys to Ascension ended up being. This horrible conglomerate that was two projects, two different producers that could have ended up being one album. I agree with Rick Wakeman on this thing, and I'll talk about that in a second. But my standout tracks are Future Times / Rejoice. Madrigal is great. I personally love Arriving UFO. Onward is absolutely gorgeous, wonderful. Love John Anderson's voice. We can never say too much about that. And On the Silent Wings of Freedom, it's just a very classic yes track to me. So, number 14, Phil.
Number 14, I am going with Time and a Word from
Nice.
1970. Obviously, the last album with Peter Banks. And for those of you who are wondering, this, they don't like to stay in for some of them. I actually bought very early on in my Yes collection. This is how I got the first 12 albums. It is the studio albums from 1969 to 1987 box set. It has all of the albums from the debut up to Big Generator. That being said, the albums that ended up being remixed by Steven Wilson, I did get them later on, and those will be the ones I show when it comes time to talk about those albums.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk
That
about
being
those.
said, this album is a big step up from the debut. Obviously, I like this album a bit more than you guys do because obviously it's higher on the list. Peter Banks's guitar work is phenomenal. Tony Kaye's organs is, he's great at what he does, as limited as what it is. I think the biggest issue is the orchestra, and not the fact that they got the orchestra, but I think that getting an orchestra of college students was not the right way to go. Maybe that's all they could afford at the time, but I think what they should have gotten with, if they could afford it, was a proper Philharmonic orchestra. I think that would have been really nice.
Yeah.
However, there are some really, really great songs on this album. I think the cover of No Opportunity Necessary, No Experience Needed that they did on the album was phenomenal. I love the orchestra work on that. I love Chris Squire's bass line on that song. Absolutely great. Then, of course, is a fantastic song. Sweet Dreams is fantastic. Again, I'm gonna keep saying that. I don't mean to be redundant. Obviously, Astral Traveler is the best song on the album. I will agree with you 100%. And Time in a Word is absolutely amazing.
Every Days is very indicative of where the band is going to go for sure, too.
Yes, Every Days as well. The Prophet and Clear Days, they're good, but they don't stand out as much. And obviously, this would be the last album we would get with
Peter Banks, yeah.
With Peter Banks. He would leave after this. They'd get Steve. Actually, he left after they were recorded, but it was before it was released.
Yeah, that's
so
why
by
they
the
got
time
Steve
this
Howe
album
on the
came out,
alternate
he was
cover.
already gone.
Yeah.
And can I just say real quick, I've always loved this version of the Yes logo.
It's not bad. It's got a 60s vibe to it, so I can never hate on it.
It's a 60s vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the classic logo will always be the best, but
of course,
this,
that's Roger Dean. How do you?
They could have they could have went with this logo a little bit longer, and I would not have complained.
No, me
at
neither.
all.
Yeah. All right. Dad, your number 14, please.
Number 14, I have Tornado. As you said, Zoltan, it's it's very much a follow up to Going for the One, and it sounds like what it is, which is like a band that agreed with the direction on Going for the One, and by Tornado they're starting to sort of disintegrate in terms of agreeing on direction,
Yeah.
which led eventually to some drama. But it's still got some great stuff on it. But yeah, it's not a classic great Yes album, but it's
Yeah.
a kind of it's a good album. It's a
Jan is
good
gonna hate all three of us. He's gonna hate me the most.
Oh well. So my number 14 is going to be the mixed bag that I feel is Keys 2. Key Studio 2, 1997. The exact same year as Open Your Eyes. I believe that they were
Which
only
I think is
released about
also
2
one of the
weeks.
reasons why it was as hated as it was. Open
True.
Your Eyes. I mean, it's like not even the same year. It came out like I think a
2
month
weeks.
apart.
Like 2 weeks
2
apart.
weeks?
I think it was like 2 weeks. I think when I looked it up beforehand, it was 2 weeks. So yeah,
That was a
bad.
mistake.
Bad, yeah, bad. This is an upgrade on the first set of tracks that were released under the Keys to Ascension name. I love the epic on here, Mind Drive. I prefer it over that is a lot more. But other than maybe a song or two besides the epic, some of the songs just overstay their welcome a bunch. Well, a touch here and there too. Good. Yeah, I'd even say get the damn thing. If you see this out in the world and you see it out in a store and a record store, then I'd say get the damn thing. But
Go
I'm
on
not
Discogs and buy it.
yeah, but I'm not going to go out of my way to go and buy it. You know what I mean? The standout tracks are Mind Drive, obviously. I have an asterisk by Footprints. I think it's good. I think it overstays its welcome. Bring Me to the Power as well. Also has a few moments where I think it overstays its welcome. And Sign Language is really good. Number 13, Phil.
Number 13. Okay. This is going to be a little bit peculiar in terms of the physical copy that I have because I bought this. I'm pretty sure I bought it on Amazon when it came with magnification and talk.
They're backwards dating
And
too.
yeah, I have no idea what kind of process they chose to decide which albums to put on this, but this is the two we got, and I'm going to be using this to talk about none other than talk.
Oh,
I am talking about the last album with Trevor Rabin
yeah.
in 1994. This is the first album that they did completely digital. There's a part in the documentary from like the 2000s where they talked about what went into the recording of this, all the digital stuff that was being developed for this album, and a shed of like full of computers with like gigabytes of data just to do this, and they had to have like these big fans in there just to keep the thing from overheating. But let's talk about the music. The Calling is a great way to open the album.
Yeah, really good.
Fantastic song. I think it's a little bit on the long side for what it is, but
well.
it's enough, but it's not that much longer than it needs to be. So it's not that bad. It's enough to keep my interest. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Even though like I could see why somebody might think it would. I think I Am Waiting is another great song. Real Love and State of Play are both great as well. Walls is magnificent. This is a song that was co-written by Roger Hodgson of Supertramp fame.
Yep.
And I think he actually provided backing vocals. I think this one was actually written It might have been written during the time when they were actually considering him to be the new lead singer for Yes. During the time when Anderson was off doing ABWH.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, then Where Will You Be? Really nice. The drums on this song are almost tribal sounding. The synthesizer work on there is phenomenal. And John Anderson, obviously, what he's singing is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, Endless Dream, the Rabin era's only real attempt at making a close to the edge style epic.
Yeah.
And it works very well. This is one of the best songs Yes has ever done. I love it from beginning to end. That opening piano riff that Trevor Rabin does on it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it is Trevor Rabin doing that. It's not Tony Kaye.
Made sense.
Absolutely stellar.
Yeah.
The guitar work is somewhat almost metallic in some points, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor's voice is phenomenal. John's voice is phenomenal. And this is probably the best way they could have closed out the era of this string of albums, because obviously after this, both Trevor and Tony left. Tony retired until Billy Sherwood brought him out of retirement to form Circa. And obviously Trevor Rabin would go off to do film scoring for the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm. All right. Dad, you're number 13.
I'm also going to go with Talk. I agree with Phil that Endless Dream is absolutely fantastic, and it really shows you that Trevor Rabin had come to terms with the idea that there are long-standing Yes fans, that if you want to keep the name Yes, you're going to have to appeal to some of those fans. And I think he did a fantastic job of writing an epic, showing that he could throw in those classical influences and put something together that it didn't take away from his more sort of
Commercial.
mainstream rock,
Yeah.
uh, his natural instinct of what to write, but it still came across. I mean, he showed he can do it, right? He said, "Yeah, I can do something like that. Here it is."
Yeah.
And it is one of the great Yes epics. I mean, it's fantastic.
It is.
I would
So, I
love
mean,
to hear them do it live with the current lineup.
on top of
Yeah.
which, for people who are sort of, really interested in the guitar point of view,
Mm.
the influence of Eddie Van Halen on rock and the guitar playing techniques that he used,
Yeah.
Trevor Rabin just seemed to absorb these influences and brought it in to the Yes sound
Yeah.
like it should have been there, and not taking away from Steve Howe's wonderful guitar sound. This was more in suiting with sort of a modern take on what guitar should sound like in
True.
prog rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I love Talk. I think it's a great album. I wouldn't say it's the very top of the Yes classics, but it's a solid, good Yes album.
Hmm. All right. So my number 13, I'm going to bring up the latest from the John Davison era. Yes, Mirror to the Sky from 2023. This is the best John Davison era Yes album to date to me. It kind of starts off weak to me. I have trouble with the lyrics of Cut from the Stars. I find that there's a few lyrics and specifically that I just can't get fully. And they stand out to me a great ton, especially the repeating lyric throughout the entire track. I find it repeats far too often. Um, but I find that the music of it is really good. All Connected grew on me. I still think that it has a tendency to be a tad inconsistent and changes a little bit too quickly. Thus, I tend to favor the other long tracks. If they get any better than this, then we could see a modern Yes classic. And I'm not even joking. I think that this Yes lineup is very close. Very, very close. If they get any better, they could easily release an album that's top 10, maybe even top 5 worthy. It's very, very close. We'll see. We'll see.
They're already hard at work on the follow-up.
Let's see. We'll see. One last thing I'll touch on, though. Both The Quest, this album have a bonus disc, and I don't like this gimmick. The Flower Kings did this with Waiting for Miracles, and now Yes has done it twice, giving us a handful of tracks to pay for the second disc. If you're going to do that, make it a double album. At least have 30 minutes of music on that, or of quality music. Or just don't have a bonus disc at all. Just stop. Just don't do that. Period. For the next Yes album, I hope they are more concise and absolutely know what they want to put out on this record instead of releasing a bonus disc that's filled with generally okay songs. Standout tracks are Cut from the Stars, All Connected. Both of those have asterisks attached. Luminosity, I absolutely enjoy and love the hell out of. Living Out Their Dream is very good. Mirror to the Sky is great. Really good epic. I very much enjoyed it. 13 minutes long or 14 minutes longish. Very, very good. Doesn't overstay its welcome. It's probably one of the best songs of this era so far. And Circles of Time is really good too. What a way to close. Number 12, Phil.
You basically just listed the entire album as your standout tracks.
Yeah. Except for the bonus disc. I don't think I named anything there.
Well, I'll touch on the bonus disc when it comes to my time to discuss it, but that will not be now because my number 12, we are returning back to this, and I'm talking, of course, about the second disc, this time in its entirety, of Keys to Ascension 2.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like this was a different
Producer, I think.
producer, different is essentially it is a different album.
Yeah, it could have been an album.
The Key Studio compilation essentially mixes all of the studio material from two separate albums.
Yeah.
Obviously, this time was produced by Billy Sherwood, different recording sessions entirely,
Better songs.
with more music. I think the discussion of whether or not Keys Studio or Keys to Ascension 1 and 2 are the definitive version of the album could have been solved if Keys 1 was set up like close to the edge, essentially, when it comes to the studio material, with like that is being the epic, Be the One, and like one more like 10-minute song.
Yeah.
But that's just a thought I just had that I wanted to say. Let's talk about the actual album. This is obviously like these two albums were the return of the classic lineup of Anderson, Howe, Wakeman, Squire, and Alan White. And this time around, we have much better songs. Mind Drive I almost said fantastic again. I'm trying not to be redundant. It is great.
But it is fantastic.
It is perfect from beginning to end. I love everything about Mind Drive.
Yeah.
Footprints is cool. Like Zoltan said, it's a little bit longer than it needs to be. It overstays its welcome. And I think the reason why it overstays its welcome is because it's too samey. Like, if you're going to have a song that long, you're going to want some changes. You're going to want some things here and there to spice it up. And unfortunately, it just doesn't have that. This should have been like maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah,
if you're
6
gonna
minutes
have it,
max. 9 minutes is a little inappropriate.
For a song that is this stagnant, I should say, I guess to say, yeah. Bring Me the Power, kind of the same. It's not as obviously overstaying its welcome as Footprints, but it's also shorter. Children of Light, I actually really fucking love.
Yeah.
I really love Children of Light. Beautiful piano from beginning to end. And I can actually use this moment to briefly touch on this because they did play this on the Open Your Eyes tour. And Igor Koroshev did a fantastic job on keyboards on this song. And like, I will say, like, Open Your Eyes, as mediocre as that album was, the tour was one of the best Yes tours ever. Like, straight up. In fact, like, the bottom 3 on my list, they're the 3 worst Yes albums to me, but they all coincide with 3 of the best tours Yes has ever had.
That's hilarious.
I always find that to be amazing.
Yeah.
I wonder what it would have been like if they actually toured Four Keys to Ascension instead of just like a series of concerts, like 3 or 4 that the live work on this ultimately came from.
Hey, imagine if they were actually well managed.
I mean, obviously, but at that point, Rick quit, so
Yeah.
chances of that happening were moot. That wasn't going to happen
None.
again.
Yeah, no.
Finally, we get to Sign Language. It's cool. Definitely the shortest on the album, just a little over 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, this is definitely a step up from Keys to Ascension 1 and like a lot closer to being the classic Yes that lineup was in the 70s.
Shame it's
I
not
wonder.
an album,
It's an album.
though. Almost.
It's an album. It's 45 minutes.
I wish, but it's not. It's alongside studio tracks. It's basically 3 sides live.
Not really.
I mean,
2 sides live, 2 sides studio.
yeah, that's true. That's also true. Yeah. Dad, you're number 12.
Keys to Ascension 2. I mean, I remember when that came out and stuff, and I bought it. Mind Drive, it was like, wow, we're back to the close to the edge kind of thing, and it was fantastic. I still think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the other tracks are okay, but I think it's because of Mind Drive that this stands out and is up here.
Yeah.
It's
No
just
disagreement.
fantastic.
All right. So my number 12 is going to be the 1987 second effort from this lineup, Big Generator. And I think that
I've always liked that album cover better than the one I
they're
have.
not. They're both mid. Both kind of
Yeah.
bad. Both kind of bad actually. But they're the 3 albums that were staple Trevor Rabin era. This is the second attempt, and damn if it isn't strong. This album falls prey to the 80s cheesy horn synth sound, and that was an epidemic in that decade. However, despite that, I think the majority, yeah, I can see you agreeing there. Despite that,
Those
I think
80s synth horns were an abomination.
yeah, it's cheesy now. It's so cheesy. I think the majority of the material here, though, is strong, minus a few tracks. I enjoy the more prog pop sensibility they have here. Plus, they had such amazing vocals there. It's so impossible to hate Yes when they have such great vocals like that all the time. For being the middle of the road album at 24 albums, this is 12th? This is 12th? This is a pretty strong ass discography. It's only a compliment to how strong their discography is, I'd say. The standout tracks, I think Rhythm of Love is a fantastic banging rock track that just works. It's 80s, it's yesy, it's really banging. It's got everything I want for an 80s yes track. It's just them in the 80s playing 80s pop that works for their sound. I agree with Phil. The title track of this album is incredibly weak. Shoot High Aim Low.
I was agreeing.
Yeah. Shoot High Aim Low is really, really strong. Love Will Find a Way, I really, really, really enjoy. It's really soft, it's melodic, it's got a really nice groove to it, really great vocals. Finalize, I'm Running are both absolutely staggering, and I could, Holy Lamb. All right. Now, next album, please. It's a song. Number 11. Phil,
Yeah,
please.
It is the song of all time.
It is the song of all time. It's the Big Generator song of all time.
Okay, my number 11, the
Yep.
album that failed to make the top 10 by just a hair. The most recent album, Mirror to the Sky. All right. I'm going to briefly touch on what I was going to in defense of this bonus disc here that I'm not going to really defend on the Quest because it was not so much the case. In the case of this album, they actually do sell a version of this album that is just the first disc with the 6 songs that comprise the main album, with the bonus disc being an optional add-on, essentially.
Oh, good. That would be nice.
So if you want to buy it that way, the bonus and without the bonus disc, you can. I would recommend, honestly, I would say it's worth it to buy the bonus disc because this time the songs are actually really good, especially Unknown Place, but we'll get to that. Obviously, this is the follow-up to The Quest, and they did a tremendous job following up that album. There's a lot more energy. There is a lot more Billy singing. There is a decent amount less Howe singing, which, with the exception of mostly the songs on the bonus disc and 2 of the songs on the main disc, but we'll get to that. I think one criticism I have of this album is the fact that the famed studio orchestra is as pronounced as it is on this album pretty much throughout the entire thing. That on its own is not a problem. I think the orchestra is great on here. I just wish it was not at the expense of the keyboards because, again, like The Quest, Jeff Downes is barely on these songs. I think one thing that they should do that would benefit the next album greatly is to 86 the orchestra and actually give Jeff the chance to shine as he can, and I know he can, on the next album. But we will get into the songs now. Cut from the Stars, fantastic instrumentally. The vocals took me a little while to really get into. I did not like, well, I shouldn't say I didn't like. They were okay. The vocal melodies, I was not as big into them. It took a while for them to grow on me. I didn't have a problem with the lyrics, and I think the real reason I didn't have a problem with the lyrics is because this is Yes. Like, who the fuck listens to Yes for lyrics?
I get you.
All Connected, fantastic. Loved it from the moment I heard it. I've been listening to this album pretty much regularly since it came out. And All Connected is one of my favorites on here. I love the progression. I love the journey it takes us on. Luminosity is another really good one. I'm going to slightly disagree and say that it's not as good as All Connected, but it's still really good. There were some moments where the guitar work in the beginning kind of reminded me a little bit of the folkier side of Genesis, which is something I appreciated.
Yeah.
John Davison's vocals, of course, sound fantastic. Living Out Their Dreams, the sole album to have a Jeff Downs writing credit on it, this is a decent one. I actually do like most of the lyrics on this one. I like the message. Um, Musically, it's a really rocking tune. Probably one of the most rocking songs they've had in a while. And then Mirror to the Sky, the 13 almost 14-minute epic. If you had told me before the Quest came out that they had this left in them, I don't know if I would have believed you. I figured that what we would get from them was maybe some more stuff like Heaven and Earth, just better developed and better put together a little bit better with more time and better production. But I didn't think they would be able to recapture the 70s sound as close as they did with an epic like this back before like 2021. And then like this whole song is just phenomenal. Now I will say, like I mentioned before, they're trying to follow what I said before, trying to recreate the Chris Squire backing vocals element by using Steve Howe. They're not doing that as much on this album as they did with The Quest, and Billy Sherwood is on here more than he was on that one vocally. You could tell that him and Steve both, their voices work together very well. And in this album, John Davison and Steve Howe's vocals work together very well too. The way they blended them on this album, particularly on Living Out Their Dreams, like it's amazing how they made those two voices sound like one person on that song.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we get into Circles of Time. I always call it Time Circles. Circles of Time. The little John Davison kind of acoustic piece. It's okay. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit long. It could have been 4 minutes, and it would have been a little bit better.
True.
Then we get into the bonus disc, and unlike the bonus disc on the Quest that had like one good song and the others were not very good, all three of the songs on this are good. And Unknown Place is the best song on the bonus disc, absolutely. It's 8 minutes. It's a little bit closer to the Quest in terms of the energy level, but it's a little bit more rocking in terms of the guitar work on it. And the organ solo from Jeff Downs is like, this is the kind of stuff I like from Jeff. I want to hear more of Jeff doing solos because I know he can do it. He's proven he can do it. He's proved that with Drama. He proved that a little bit with some of the moments on Fly From Here. And he proved it again here. He proved it on the Ice Bridge, too. So I am hoping for the next album that we actually get a proper keyboard-heavy Yes project with Jeff doing the stuff that I know he can do. Give the orchestra a break, guys. We've had it for 2 albums. We don't need a third. It's great, but don't overdo it. You're starting to do that. But anyway, number 11, Mirror to the Sky. If the next album, they're already capitalizing on the momentum of both this and the Quest. I have no reason not to believe that the next album isn't going to be even better. And if it is, I will be so happy to see a current day Yes album enter my top 10.
Yeah, me too. Dad, number 11.
For number 11, I'm going to go with Big Generator. I really like the Trevor Rabin era of Yes. I think he brought some revitalization to the band. Obviously, the standout track on this album is Final Eyes, but Shoot High, Aim Low is also fantastic. Again, I think that at this point, you're writing an album that's a follow up album to a massive hit album.
Mhm.
And when you put out an album under the name Yes, you don't expect to have a hit album.
No.
So there's pressure to keep up with that kind of success. Obviously, while this album did have some success, it didn't have the success of 90125. But I don't think it was for a lack of trying. I think this is a solid follow up. And again, they tried later on with Talk to keep on that direction. But obviously, the longer term cult Yes fans are not really as into this direction as some other people are. And again, I kind of liked this direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I like the idea that Trevor Rabin was bringing in those more modern guitar tones, modern for the 80s, I mean,
Yeah.
and bringing in that sort of emphasis again on writing good songs. And yeah, you can do them as orchestral as you want,
Yeah.
but fundamentally they have to be good songs. So I think it's a solid, good album. Might not be quite yet a Yes classic, but it's a great album, and I still like it to this day. So
All right. My number 11, the album that didn't make the top 10 cut, is going to be. This hurts a lot. 1994's Talk. I love this album. I love The Calling. I love Walls, Real Love, and of course, Endless Dream is it's so good. At least half of this album is peak, absolutely peak, yes. Depending on my mood, though, I could take or leave the rest of the album, which is why I didn't have it ranked in the top 10. Trevor Rabin had fantastic production contribution and great playing, singing, songwriting on top of that. Great, but not top tier, unfortunately. Even though some of the songs absolutely are top tier. Let's just get that out of the way. Standout tracks are obviously The Calling, Real Love, Walls, and obviously, The Endless Dream, which is one of the best Yes songs in 30 years. Number 10. Hi. So I think you've figured out that this is not going to be one whole video. So I'm hoping that you look forward to part 2. We will be uploading that very soon. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all very much for watching. And see you all in the next one. Peace.